Meeting of the Newman City Council and Redevelopment Agency of June 10th, 2008. Please stand for the pledge and the invocation. Bow our heads. Please help myself and my fellow council members make the right fiscal decisions for the city of Newman. Amen. Roll call, please.
Councilmember Caden?
Present.
Councilmember Kelly?
Present.
Councilmember Cricklow?
Present.
Mayor Pro Tem Martinez?
Present.
Mayor Fantasy?
Present. No ceremonial matters. Non-agenda items. Any conflicts of interest this evening? He's pointing. Oh, microphone.
I haven't said nothing yet.
Okay, non-agenda item. Does anybody have anything they'd like to bring before us that is not on tonight's agenda? See no one. Consent calendar. Item A, waive all readings of ordinances and resolutions by title. Approval of warrants. Approval of minutes of the May 27, 2008 regular meeting. And item D, adopt resolution number 2008, a resolution authorizing the purchase of 2 compressed natural gas vehicles with the transit capital equipment portion of CMAQ funds. Any questions? I think my mic went dead. Any questions on the consent calendar? If not, some,
Move to approve. Second.
all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Thank you very much. We have a public hearing this evening. Adopt resolution number 2008. Next number, resolution declaring the existence of a public nuisance under ordinance number 95-4.
That was good timing. We have 4 homes this meeting. One on Hagerman Peak, Canyon Brook, or Stimba Peak, and Carlsbad Caverns. At least 2 interesting, this is, we got, okay. At least 2 of the 4, this has been a question in the past, are bank owned. We'll try to cover that so you know, and then the other 2, at this point, it's appear to still be privately owned. All of them are for tall grass, debris, those types of issues. And we're, 2 more? 2 more.
I got it.
Turn your mic on.
Can you help me? I'm sorry, I don't know which, is this not on in?
You know what,
There we
Bob?
go.
That sounds like they all went dead. I don't know. No? Oh.
It's on now. All of these, we've gone through the due diligence in the process and followed all of our protocols, and we'd be ask you to declare them a nuisance so we can move forward to correct these issues.
Any questions for Adam?
Adam, one question, that one view of the swimming pool, is there water down the bottom of that pool?
I believe there was. I saw that as well earlier. Can we go?
Yeah, you've got it.
So the shot I have, there's another shot I think that shows water.
I don't know which button it is. Can you move it?
This is the only one of the pool that we have.
Oh, it is?
Kind of looks like there is water
I may
down there.
have a better picture, a still photo, though.
Yes, I might. Adam, if that's the case,
There
there's
is water, yes.
do we have the right to go in and pump that out? That's not only a nuisance, but it's a hazard.
If you declare the resolution for abatement, that will be part of the bond.
Okay.
I'll make sure that that's part of it if that's what you desire.
Yeah, I'd hate to see someone fall in there accidentally.
Well, especially with the fence down.
And there's mosquito issues as well.
Yeah.
Correct.
Any other questions for Adam?
Adam, just real quick.
Yes.
Have you seen with all these foreclosures, have the kids or have even been used for quote party houses that we found?
You know, we've only had 1 report of that actually, and we have one house that we are monitoring for that. We've had some reports that the kids are using it sort of as a hangout, parking in the driveway, going inside. But other than that, we haven't had a rash of that. That sort of issue. There were 12 At the beginning of today, we were able to successfully resolve 8 of them with the homeowner, so we are still very aggressively working. The goal is cooperation, obviously, so our community service officer has been very successful with that in getting compliance.
Any other questions? Seeing none, I'll go ahead and open the public hearing. Would anybody like to comment on these abatements? Seeing no one, I'll close the public hearing and bring it back to the council for some action.
I so move for adoption of resolution number 2008, next number, declaring the existence of a public nuisance under ordinance number 95-4.
Second that motion.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Thank you very much. Regular business, item A, adopt resolution number 2008, next number, a resolution approving building permit fee adjustments.
Our newly named building official, Mike Brinkman, will.
Mr. Mayor, City Council. As you can see by the staff report, I'm proposing to adjust the permit fees based on the current consumer price index. Currently, we're using the 97 Uniform Administrative Code as our administrative provisions for the California Building Code. The reason we're using the 97 is because when we adopted the international code, or when California adopted the international code has an administrative portion but doesn't have anything to do with fees. So it leaves individual jurisdictions up to themselves to find out what fee structures they want to go with. Since we're currently using this for 10 years now, we just kept rolling it over and continue to use it. But since some of the figures are fixed and we can't adjust them, I'm proposing to get it up to today's inflation rate.
Questions? If not, some direction.
I move to adopt resolution number 2008, next number, a resolution approving building permit fee adjustments.
A second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Mike, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Item B, consider for approval the articles for June 2008 city newsletter.
Thank you, Mayor. Our intern, Ariana Gomez, will do the presentation.
Good evening, Honorable Mayor, City Council members. I've been working on the Newman City News, which is the city newsletter, and basically it's just a simple 11 by 15 newsletter, and it has a section on the West Side Theater and new employees and some new projects that the city has planned. And we did it based on just all the other newsletters that are in the neighboring cities. We wanted something more modern, so it's going to be in full color this time. And we are sending it out to InfoSend, which does the billing statements. So it's going to be treated as an insert, and so it's going to be 1 cent per copy, and it's going to be $1,155 to actually have 3,500 copies printed. And they're going to be on a 70-pound buckstock. And we compared it to printing cost with local publishers, but there's over $1,000 difference. That's why we decided to send it out. So do you have any questions?
So it's a lot cheaper to just have them insert it in our sewer and water
Yeah.
garbage bill than
Yeah,
mail it
'cause-
ourselves.
Yeah, because of the postage rate.
You've done a nice job. It's
very nice.
Very attractive and very professional looking.
Thank you.
Why don't you tell us about yourself, hon? Your
I,
background.
I'm going to be a sophomore at USC next fall, and I am declared as a print journalism major, but I'm looking to go into public relations. And I grew up here in town, so came home for the summer.
Can you get us tickets to USC games?
If you give me money.
Ted, you always want some for
Gotta
nothing.
try.
Jeez. We gave you those trees and you're still not.
Very nice job.
Yeah.
Thank you.
You know,
you.
a lot
Good job.
of, a lot of thought went into this. Excellent job.
Thank you.
Yeah. I don't see my name in here, but it's still.
That is Ted. Jeez.
Mayor, just so you know,
Your name isn't there,
Ariana did
actually.
go out and meet with department heads, interview them, and wrote a lot of the stories herself. So she's done an excellent job. we handed it off to her and she took it to where it's at, so we're real happy with that.
Bob, I'm sure that the next newsletter will reflect the annual softball game that was held and your contributions to that game.
So
Your name
with
won't
that,
be there again.
with that, Mayor, we do ask for just a simple vote so we can get a majority to send this out.
Sounds good.
I concur.
Do I have a motion?
I move that we adopt.
I second that motion.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you very much. Thank you for your hard work.
Very nice.
Mayor, at this time, I ask that we move item E up and have that take place now. That's the presentation of the downtown plaza.
Okay. We'll have a presentation of Downtown Plaza Progress by RRM Design Group.
You want to go ahead and start it? Well, good evening, Honorable Mayor and council members and staff and audience. My name is Warren McClung. I'm with RRM Design Group. Have Sam Harned here. Sam and I have been working with the city. Actually, RRM started on this project about 5 or 6 years ago, doing a master plan in I think the master plan, first one was done in 2004, but we started obviously a year or so ahead of that to go through that process. What we're here to do tonight is to talk about the downtown plaza, where we were with the 2004 master plan, what has happened in the process of developing that design. There's been some changes out at just in the boundaries of the site and things like that. So we want to talk about that and just fill you in on where we are and get some comments. Okay, this is the site that we're dealing with. Main Street's up here, 33's down here, Fresno's here, and what's the street on this side here, Sam? Tulare, that's right, Fresno, Tulare. I grew up in Fresno, I should remember Tulare. Let's see. Okay, the actual boundaries of the site in 2004 were represented by the green here, and some of the things that you can observe about the boundaries are, oops, can we back that up, please, Mike? Yeah. We don't have a backup on this.
Whoops.
What's that?
Jeez.
Damn site.
No. Back it up again if you could, two clicks. There we go, right there. Okay, looking at the boundary, it's the heavy line here. We, in 2004, when we worked on this, one of the things that we had to struggle with were the fact that the site was really split with an area up here and an area down here on the corner of 33 and Fresno, with a real tight constriction space right there, just as far as moving vehicles and people through the project. With that constraint, we worked with a design committee downtown and developed this design. And some of the major components of this design are the a gateway plaza, mini plaza down here at the corner of Fresno and 33, a promenade up the middle of the site to a little central plaza here with the John Sharp Monument relocated to this point, and then move into this other space up here where there was a water feature and some sitting areas that allows people to move in towards the entrance to the theater up here. Also some other elements, the Christmas tree, which was a major, obviously an icon downtown that people want to keep. There's the mailbox over here that seems to be have a lot of sentimental value and a lot of useful value, so there was a lot of discussion about that and the Christmas tree. And down here, back at this end of the plaza, where we enter from 33, the master plan included the Yancey building here as to restore it, and I don't know exactly if we had a use for it at the time. Do you remember, Michael, if we designated a use?
Preliminary talks were a visitor center type.
And a chamber.
Chamber type thing, yeah.
With restroom facilities.
Okay, and then we had parking up in here that would be dual-use parking and pedestrian area, that if you close this off for a big event at each side, you could really use that all as a pedestrian plaza. Whereas this parking down in here was, would be permanent all-time parking. You would rarely close it down. Okay. Just to illustrate the plan a little bit more. Well, there we go. This slide shows what we refer to as the more pedestrian-oriented areas in the yellow. When this gets closed down, that would be considered pedestrian area. Whereas in this next slide here, coming up,
The
There
pedestrian
we go.
area as well is also basically right at sidewalk levels at the top of the curb.
Yeah.
So anybody walking in off the sidewalk would enter onto that level as well, without any curb obstruction.
yeah, the design of that space would be more pedestrian-oriented at scale and such. Whereas in this design, the red here represents those areas dedicated primarily to vehicular traffic. And then this represents the vehicular traffic circulation in the 2004 plan. We've got 2 points of access down here, two-way traffic through in all directions, crossing a little peninsula, kind of a small area for the pedestrians to cross at what we call a traffic table there, and then access in and out of the site onto Fresno Street here. This plan also in 2004 included a little parking lot here. Now, let's see, let's just move on to the next slide here. About a year ago, we were asked to come back and start working on the master plan and taking it into design development. And design development is taking it from a real loose graphic into a much more tight design where we really start to figure out the details. Almost immediately upon getting started, there were several things that started changing. One of them is the boundary change, where over here you can see the boundary popped out here because the city purchased the McBride building here. Soon after we started, there were some discussions with some of the adjacent property owners right here, the St. George. In fact, we had dinner there tonight. They expressed an interest in maybe participating in the plaza, some joint private-public use there, because there's obviously a benefit for them to front out onto the plaza. A lot of pedestrian access, a lot of visibility. During those discussions and during the design committee meetings, a couple of adjacent property owners were on the committee, and they were in this area, and they have contemplated the idea. We don't have commitments really or firm agreements on those, but the discussion was, wouldn't it be great if we can kind of meld the plaza area and the private area a little bit visually at least, because this area here is right now all pretty much utilitarian. Several dumpsters, there's the grease traps where the rendering plants come pick them up. There's some nasty grade changes between the plaza and those areas. And what we were faced with was either trying to isolate those areas or perhaps try to bring them in visually, and that's what prompted the discussions with the adjacent property owners. And Michael's been carrying on some just informal talks, mainly at the design committee meetings, just what can we do there? And I think there is a pretty good level of interest. Okay. So with these changed conditions, we started a series of design review meetings with the design committee. We met with the steering committee. We met with adjacent property owners several times. We met with the public safety officials. We met with the trash companies, as they have to have access here and function as a key issue. We met with the utility companies as they're doing some underground utility work through the corridor here, and the coordination of our plans with that is extremely important. During those discussions with the steering committee, we also were asked to see where we can include a service recognition feature that would recognize the 5 branches of the armed services. We talked about the John Sharp Monument in the current design here, and as part of this discussion of where the 2004 master plan came from and what the priorities are in 2007, a year ago, 3 years after the master plan was adopted. The Christmas tree, in discussing that, it was very obvious that was a must-have, that's going to be there. It's going to be a live Christmas tree. It's a very important feature in the community, and so we heard that loud and clear. Back to the John Sharp Monument, there was a lot of discussion of whether or not it's appropriate in here, and I think when I was here last year talking to the council, several council members weren't even sure who John Sharp was. How many know who John Sharp was? Okay. So, you know, it's got a location in the city right now, and I think the general consensus at the meeting, the historic folks probably do.
I don't, but there is something written up on it.
Okay.
I don't have it with me right now.
All right. That'd be great to have. What park is it in right now?
Pioneer.
Pioneer Park, right.
So that was the consensus.
Yeah,
The consensus was to generally leave it at.
Leave it where it is, yeah.
The community was best served with it in its current location.
Yeah. Okay. The mailbox, which stayed in the master plan right there, was another thing that we just got to have. Can't do without that convenience. I mean, it's all right. It was a nice little design challenge for us because you want to drive up to a mailbox on the left side and still be in the lane you're supposed to be in. And that's not the way it currently works out there. But yeah. The water feature, which is right here, was discussed quite a bit and is a desirable feature. However, the committee was also talking about the fact, and Michael brought it up, that you're building an aquatic facility now that's dedicated to recreation, water recreation. And this water feature that was proposed in here was to have dancing jets and such. You know, the kids can play, and it's called an interactive feature, but I believe the aquatic facility is going to have something similar to that or something to play in. So early on, there was some questions how important it is for the plaza. Let's see what else we have on that. The Yancey building in the master plan is located down here, and there was also some discussion about that building of whether or not the plaza is the most appropriate place for that structure. It does have historic significance, and I guess at the time when we started talking about this, we had heard that the Historic Society may be interested in using it at a different site. I don't know what that consensus is at this point. But we also talked about the fact that down in this area where the Yancey building is an area that the veterans were interested in the service recognition feature. So we knew in designing the area down here, we would be struggling with that. Public safety, got a lot of good input there. Obviously, they want high visibility into the site. They want good lighting at night. They want to be able to drive into it, and just as they drive by and drive through, they can see everywhere throughout the project.
Yeah, also with the public safety, we talked about just the circulation. You know, where do they actually need to get to on site? Do they need to be able to navigate all the way through the plaza itself, or perhaps just to certain locations?
Is this going to be a nightmare, Adam, for police, at night?
Yeah, I'm not very familiar with the project being
Go ahead.
new, obviously, but
Yeah.
I wouldn't envision it creating a drain on our resources. The type of people visiting this type of place are not the type that we would usually encounter. Probably your typical skateboard and bicycle issues.
Yeah.
Right.
And I think that was the general consensus. We met with the interim chief at the time, and I think that was the general consensus at that time as well.
Thank you.
Okay, also the utility companies we talked to really understand how they were going to integrate with our work and vice versa. Parking, last but not least by any means, that was another issue right up there with the mailbox, the Christmas tree, and those types of things. We heard that message loud and clear. Where's Bob? Is he? back room. Anyway, so those are some of the key elements that went through a fair amount of discussion during the design review meetings. This slide here shows with that, I guess we're moving into new opportunities. What this slide shows here is the old traffic patterns. I just went forward. Can you back that up just real quick here? Thank you. It shows the old traffic patterns. Well, does it? There we go. The old traffic patterns and the old, I say old, 2004, what we were starting with the new boundary being out here. So you see a big white hole here where the McBride building was added. And so what we saw was with the additional land, there were some new opportunities presented to us. And that's represented here. So this shows the old traffic pattern on the new configuration of the site. This slide here shows how when we got started, we found out down here that we can't have this driveway due to traffic concerns and proximity to the intersection here.
Another thing that I want to point out regarding when you see the much larger expanded pedestrian level represented by the yellow here, one of the points that Warren mentioned earlier was that kind of constriction point between the two property corners right in the middle of the site. As you can see, that constriction really got pushed well back, and it really opened up the site.
Is right through here.
Yes, in that area right there, as well as
Could you back up two or three pops there?
as well as the traffic pattern that has to go up and around the McBride parcel that used to be out of it. And
Yeah.
so now that property and the rear portion of that parcel came in, coupled with the potential cooperation with the hotel property there, that whole portion of the site really opened up and created a really large pedestrian potential that just wasn't there with the original limits and restrictions.
What he's pointing out is the constricted space here where you're trying to stop vehicular traffic and pedestrian circulation, and how this gets cut in, and this is where the utility areas are, the trash and such, where if we were not to develop in this area, we'd probably want to wall that off or screen it off somehow, and that would even intrude more into the site. So moving forward, this shows the expanded area, much more generous space to work with in here. This remains still in place, but we got more room up this way. Some changes to the circulation. We lost this driveway. With the McBride building, we get a much more graceful flow of traffic out this way. Public safety has indicated that we didn't need to drive through the site this way. The trash companies also indicated they don't need to drive through. They could just come in here, pick up the trash, back out and go. So that freed up, you can see quite a difference between the previous structure and circulation and what we have now. Oops, I just went, what's that? Yeah. And so what we did is work through probably half a dozen or more concepts on whether we just grow the master plan. Why don't you back up just to one there? Whether we just try to grow these elements that are in the master plan and just make them bigger, make them spread out more, or whether we have the opportunity to explore some newer design arrangements of the site and get it organized a little bit differently and make it function a little bit better. So what we, in doing that, we explored, I don't know who was on, you're on the committee here, and we went through all kinds of stacks of paper of ideas, and some pretty wild, some pretty almost exactly like this, but we went through a wide range. And what we came up with was what's under here, and you can see how it fits the circulation. We took advantage of going through here, we took advantage of getting rid of the crossing here and make a dedicated pedestrian space right in the middle, which actually takes advantage of the fact that we have an easement over this property here so that we can get a much more substantial space. And I'm just going to go to the next slide where we can talk about this being the design that came out of the committee after going through several iterations. Starting down or up at the top here, what we have is, oops, I just went forward, so I need to go back. Okay, there we go. What we have here is up where the theater is, we have crossing that, where we're proposing a brick that matches across the brick that's across the theater. Then we go into a pedestrian-oriented paving that just really takes in this whole area here and really gives the look and feel of this is all pedestrian territory, even though in some spots cars drive through it. In order to drive through it, they got to go up onto the pedestrian level. The space is scaled down. There are, the detectable tactile domes here for the ADA compliance, where you know where the edge of the traffic is and such. So the pedestrian certainly has the right of way when they're up on these higher levels here. Some of the major features then, the Christmas tree is still in here. The mailbox is located down in this area here, where this turned into a smaller scale one-way drive coming out. And so it positions us really well for the mailbox on the left side. So a lot of work to get that in.
Oh, my God.
The water feature is shown in this updated master plan. It's there to show how it works, how within the design. The decision hasn't been made whether it's going to be part of the development or not. I think that's going to be both fiscal and functional. There's a lot of discussion on the initial cost, the upkeep costs, the fact that you got the aquatic center that's going in, and what's the function here versus the aquatic center. Again, we are able to develop a very nice central area for gathering, public gathering, a little stage area with a backdrop of a trellis. If there's a desire for some kind of a statuary of some sort, there's a perfect position right in here that we've identified at the back end of what we're calling a stage. And it's a stage only in that if you have an outdoor event, people can set up on there. If they're going to have a band play, they can set up there. If they're just going to make a speech, mayor, you can stand up there. If there's no event going on, you can sit on the edges of it. It makes for a lot of outdoor seating.
Will it be a gazebo type? I mean,
not really.
Not covered.
Not covered.
No.
What we did is put a.
That would be neat.
We put a trellis on the back. The backside's covered, but one of the goals was to get a lot of cover with just the tree canopy. You can see up here how we're able to expand and really turn this area into a place that looks, like, even though this is parking, it looks and feels like that entire area is within an orchard of trees, and will provide a lot of shade.
Nice.
Moving down to this corner, is we developed this concept with the service recognition area here, and the veterans, when they talked to us, they wanted really to see a space that you could walk into and appreciate the the dedication of the veterans that served. It's not a memorial. It's not that. It's just anybody that served. It's the whole idea is that they wanted to recognize people that served in the past or still serving, and they wanted to be more than just a plaque on a wall or a rock or something. They wanted to walk into it so that you can contemplate the dedication that those people have. And then also if you're there and you're not really associated with someone in the services, they just want a nice space that you can hang out in. The way this is designed is you got a flagpole here. You got the space defined by some low walls so you can still see into it, but then you've got an implied roof plane here with some trellises that kind of match what is happening over here. And then you'd have 5 elements in here that would speak to the nature of each of the services. Those pieces have not been designed. I mean, all we've done now is define a space for that, which is here. When we were developing this design, you'll notice we no longer have the Yancey building here, and that it kind of became a choice between the two, because the Yancey building's deserving of enough space around it, as well as the service recognition area needs space around it. So within this area, it's kind of hard to fit those two in. So in this master plan here, the consensus of the design committee was to focus on the service area and develop that as complete as possible. Some of the comments were the fact that with the Yancey building here, it starts to block some of the views from 33 into the plaza. And one of the things we want to do is get people looking in more towards the theater and the downtown area. There's also discussion on the pretty high cost. We don't have an exact cost, but there would be quite a bit of a high cost involved in renovating that building for public use. Then the question was, what would it be used for? So those factors came into play, and the consensus at the committee level was to develop that as the plaza. As the service recognition area. McBride building here is shown with a little bit of trimming on it. There's kind of some ramshackle add-ons, and we're suggesting that that be lopped off at the original building face so we can develop this space a little bit better with a restroom and maybe an information kiosk there. Perhaps this building is some kind of private commercial use, retail use. Perhaps at some point it evolves into a visitor information center. We don't know yet, but the idea is to develop a nice space around it. So, if I missed anything on there, Sam, we're showing up in here, if these adjacent property owners were interested in participating, we could expand the character of that plaza up in here. This shows a shaded area which would be outdoor dining associated with the St. George here, but also just open to general public. It'd be like a sidewalk cafe type affair. We also see the opportunity to make a pedestrian connection through here with cooperation of the adjacent landowners. Because there's parking here, there's just people like to cut through and get to the main drag. If they're parking here and going that way, they may want to sneak through here. Likewise, coming through the alleyway here, this now looks more like a plaza than an alleyway by raising it up and getting some nice paving. Any other features that we need to highlight, Sam? Okay. I think we don't have any more slides after this.
That's all.
Can take any questions from the council, comments.
Questions, comments?
Warren, I've got a couple questions for you.
Sure.
One of the problems we have with downtown Newman is parking. And with the completion of this plaza, the way you're presenting it now, how many parking spaces are going to be in that plaza?
62, is there,
62, yeah, is what's shown here,
on this plan?
Okay.
We have,
which is an increase. I think there's 43 that are striped today.
43 striped over in this area today. And what we're doing is we've got parking here. We've got parking all down in here. There's a couple of spaces over here if we go onto that adjacent property.
Those two aren't.
You're not counting those. Okay. Then over here, the 2004 master plan, when we didn't have the McBride building, had 5 spaces on site here. And what we were able to do is we said, well, you know what? If by the time you have a driveway, take that driveway out to get in here, we could fit 5 diagonal spaces here. So we really have about maybe 1 less parking space than the 2004 master plan.
It's still 20 more than what is there now.
Yes.
That's correct.
Yes.
The other comment that I have, and there's quite a bit of public sentiment about the Yancey building, and the idea of this plaza is the Newman Historic Downtown Plaza. You have one of the most historic buildings in town, and if you're going to have a historic plaza, I know there's quite a few people that think that should be involved in it. I realize everybody has their own opinion about what they'd like to see. I personally, as a councilman, would like to have the opportunity to have those people contact me and express their concerns. I know there's people in the audience tonight from the Historical Society and other general public that I would also like to hear comments if they'd like to make them this evening.
Okay. I think that's a good idea.
Go ahead, Mayor.
Mary Moore, President of the Newman Historical Society. I'd like to start before there's questions from a lot of the people here. We were kind of caught in between. Some people might think we took this away from the plaza. it was brought to our attention at a meeting that it was not going into the plaza. So I talked to Mike Holland. I said, I don't care where it goes. We do not want it destroyed. The building came over from the river in 1893. It was one of the first buildings to come into town. It was at the end of the railroad tracks. It is far historical than any other building that's here in town, I believe. There's a lot of historical buildings, and there's a lot of historical things. The John Sharp, I don't have what it is, but I know I've seen it in the museum. But the museum, the Historical Society, doesn't care if it goes to the plaza, if that's the choice, or if it goes where it's at, behind the museum. We just do not want it destroyed. But it was the vocal, and that's where it was supposed to have gone, was to the plaza. Any questions?
I agree with you. That was from way the beginning. That was the talk of where it was going to go, the
The
plaza.
John Sharp Building, monument, I think, should stay. As long as I can remember, I was born and raised in Newman. The John Sharp was in the park. I think it would probably crumble trying to get it out of there.
Good possibility,
I
yeah.
mean, that's 70-some years that I only know of it. Now, I don't know about the rest of the people. There's someone probably here longer than that. But I just don't think it could stand the move. So but we do not want to see it destroyed, and that was our saying.
Well, you know, Mary, we've lost too many things already. You know, we lost the bus, and I don't understand that. We lost our train station, and I don't understand that. And we just can't continue to lose things that have that kind of importance to the city. We've lost too many.
That's right. Our high school was built in 1908. It was a beautiful building. We will never have another one like it. We lost the auditorium that was there and the gym that the city could probably still be using, because there is gyms. When I was driving, there were gyms at other schools that were made just like ours. So it's a shame that we couldn't save it. A lot of us that are in the Historical Society didn't know about how to go about saving it. And so this is why we formed the Historical Society in 1995, to try to save what we have.
How important is it to, and I wasn't part of the discussions early on, as far as the planning, when the John Sharp Monument was mentioned, how important is that to be part of the plaza? Because I agree with you. To take the risk of moving something like that, as historic as it is, it would be a shame, seems to me, if it.
Ed, I think what the John Sharp building was, I think it was and I'm not positive because I haven't really read up on it. I know probably we have a file on it. And I think what it was a drinking spot for horses.
Right.
Yes. And so that, to me, is not of importance as much as the Yancey building, the library, the museum. I still call it the library. It was when I was a kid. But some of these other things, you know, they were built in 1920. They've been here a long time. We hate to see them demolished. And that's what we're trying to save.
And as far as the Yancey building, I'm not real sure it could stand another move either, but as well as just sitting there, I would think it's deteriorating.
Well, we went in it the other day, and it's pretty good. It's about 19 by 19, and it was pretty solid. It really was.
Do you have any estimates on that, Mayor? How much it would cost to refurbish that?
We spent $33,000 on the first school that we brought down from the hills, and we did that all ourselves. But I don't think this building would require that much. It needs paint, it needs flooring, it needs foundation, but I don't think it will run into something like that.
But if it's going to be used for a center, I think as you mentioned, does it now have to become ADA compliant and upgrade with current electrical and water? And I think that adds a higher price tag.
Right.
I agree. I mean, I've only been in town for 30 years, and
Well, I know there's a door in the back. A ramp can be put around it, I think that it would not have to. But I think for grants and things on that building, you would have to take it back up. It's like 5 stairs there now, but I think over there it was only 3 long steps. And it would have to go back to the original, and to put it back to the original to get the grants, that's how it would have to go.
Yeah.
Michael, a
But it
question.
would qualify for grants that way.
A question, if that's declared a historical building, is it then precluded from some of the handicap accessible things?
Yeah, we can declare. We can't get state historical significance because the building's been moved. Once the building's been moved from its site, it's no longer by the state classified as historical. But we can make a local determination of historical significance, and we can work with the ADA department from that perspective. Yes, we would be allowed some flexibility. So, and just as a point of clarification, it was never any of the city staff or anybody's intention that the Yancey building be destroyed. That has never ever been approached, or has never even been a topic of discussion. So I just want to make sure that's concerned. In fact, we've already gotten quotes on what it would cost to put a foundation down in its current location to lower it. So those are some of the costs that we've looked at so far.
As president of the Historical Society, we'll work with you with whichever way it goes. Thank you.
Thanks, Mary.
Thank you, Mary. Anybody else like to comment while we're discussing it? No one else?
Oh, hold on a minute.
Oh, yeah.
What's that? Take it easy. That's what we're here for.
I just like to put my 10 cents in. I've seen so many old buildings destroyed, and I know we're not going to destroy this one for sure, one way or another, but I really think the right position for that building is in the plaza downtown, because it's such a, it could be such a vocal point of the downtown area. And you talk about historic downtown Newman. This building is certainly one of the oldest and most historic, and if it were put anywhere else, it would not be nearly as visible as it would be in this spot downtown. And I think they've done a wonderful job with the planning of this plaza, and I would just love to see that old Yancey Lumber Company office downtown. So that's just my opinion, but I know there are a lot of other people that feel just like I do, because I've gotten a lot of calls on that. Thank you.
Thank you.
Maybe you can incorporate the mailbox in.
Hi, Carol Stevens, 1107 S Street. I'm on the design committee, and in my defense, I was absent at the meeting where they decided not to use the Yancey building. But I'm just wondering, first of all, I'm thinking that maybe we should go back and discuss it a little bit more at the committee level, and I'm hoping we can do that. But as I was looking at it tonight, I was thinking, well, I too want the Yancey building downtown in the plaza, and I would like it to be a visitor center and a restroom, maybe complex. This is what that is right now. So I'm just sitting here thinking, why couldn't the service part be here and the Yancey building and some kind of just a landscape entry here? So I think there are other ways of looking at this again, and I think this is maybe a good spot for the service center. It's almost the same size. It faces the area where the people are going to be coming in. It's a possibility that we could do both. And my vote would be to keep the Yancey building downtown. I think it's obviously unique. I just got back from Savannah, and I want to compliment your group, because a group similar to yours is what saved the city of Savannah. They were tearing it down, building by building, and it's the most beautiful city I've been in. And it was all because of preservation ladies, quote unquote. But they did a remarkable job, and they said this building's important. We have to find a way to preserve it, find someone to buy it that will guarantee they're preserving it. And it happened, and it's a beautiful city. So we can't let any more go away. And that building is cute, it's unique, it's quaint, and I think it could be restored. I think that's a beautiful spot for it. So that's my opinion.
Thank you. Anyone else?
Good evening, Mayor and council members. Dave Reed, 1541 Kern Street. I too on the design committee. Excuse me, lost my voice there. On the design committee, and when we took a vote on this, I was in the minority, so it was planned on not being used in the plaza. So, but it's been sitting up here now for 6 years behind the museum. It's in there rotting. And Kern Honeywell, after a bit of arm twisting, was kind enough to donate it to the city, where he could have sold it to many people who wanted to buy it at the time. And to keep it here, I still believe it should be in the plaza. And just what Carol just said, the location is what I was thinking too. So if it would be possible to take another look at that, it would be very worthwhile. And the idea of leaving it where it is sort of a secondary thing, just to save it from being just sitting there rotting away. So thank you.
Thank you, Dave.
You know, Dave, you said it's sitting there rotting. Apparently built in 1892. I don't think it's going to rot very much. It's got lumber that it's going to be here a long time after everything else in the city's rotted away. Yeah. I guarantee it's made out of solid redwood. It's not going anywhere for a long time.
Glynis Kidder, 936 Inyo, and I apologize for my attire, but I was at a Red Hat meeting.
You look
and
very
I
nice.
felt,
Gorgeous.
and I felt it was important to come here and voice the opinion of many of my fellow Newman citizens of the importance of including this building. And I have to tell you, my lady said when I left the meeting, if you can't convince them, give them a call and we'll come down, and I don't think you want me to do that. So I need to stress the importance of how local people who've been here all of our lives feel about this building. The high school, the auditorium, had a lot of memories there, and it's gone. And this whole project, downtown historic Newman, what's more historic than this building? And if we can spend $10 million in an aquatic center, I think we need to save something that means so much to this community. Thank you.
Thank you, Glennis. I agree.
Glennis, it seems to me I remember the last time you Red Hatters were all here together, you had cake for us.
I'm sorry. I'll go get some cupcakes.
We're easily swayed.
So write that down in your 700 form. Cupcakes.
Is there any way of putting the box in there? The mailbox?
A box? Where?
In the Yancey building. Drive-by. Don't even say that word.
Anything's possible.
I'm kidding, but I'm not kidding.
One other, Council, one other consideration that the Plaza Committee also looked at is, you know, this is a three-phase project in that area where the service honorary is, which also was a location where the Yancey was being proposed as phase 3 of that. So at this point in time, we run about 60% of the funding for phase 1 and 2 right now. Phase 3, I think we're still looking is probably so we probably have about 600 to 750,000 to go for phase 1 and 2, and then phase 3 is probably another $750,000. Do you want to point that out?
Well,
phase 1 is the most pedestrian area up there, up on top, that goes up to the St. George.
yeah, mainly,
Yes, it's
generally
mainly-
in this area here.
Generally in that area, and then phase 2 is the parking lot design. And what we were trying to do at this point in time is develop enough funding to do phase 1 and 2, to develop that, obviously to replace some of the parking that is lost, because you originally start with 43. But if you only take half the plaza on that side, you have a net loss. But if you add all of it back in, you go net positive on that. So that and it still functions with circulation. So those were some of the reasons.
Yeah,
another one of the reasons.
Just for me, I I'm like say I spent a lot of time in that building, and some of you probably spent a lot more than I have, but I can still see Tom Yancey standing on that porch of that building, and I too would like us not to lose it, and if there's some way it could be incorporated, I just because it is such a historical part of our community, I would agree. I would like to see and get an idea of what it would cost to refurbish it, and if we could use it somehow, include it over there. I remember seeing them pull the train station out and hauling it out of town, and so I would personally I'd like to see it included somehow.
Would anybody else? I'm sorry.
Yeah, Warren, I've got an additional question. Bob, can you hear me in the back? If they complete phase 1 and they don't get phase 2 with the parking, that's going to limit the parking spaces to about 20. Do you feel that that's pretty short as far as parking up in that area?
In all likelihood, Councilmember, we wouldn't go phase 1 without phase 2.
Okay. Thank you, Bob. Stay in the back.
And the reason it's called phase 1 and phase 2, that was part of the T grant, Transportation Enhancement Grant. We had to phase it out accordingly. Since we've now expanded it, 1 and 2 actually work together, but it was more of a funding issue. So we had to demonstrate that, well, we wanted X number of dollars up here for phase 1 and Y number of dollars for phase 2, but they really work together, and we were going to do them in tandem.
Is there any way to work phase 3 or the Yancey building into phase 2 somewhere?
Yeah, for an extra $800,000, $1 million. So, and so one of the
You'll be here, don't worry.
One of the thought processes we went through was, with this particular layout was, with a veterans element, a service honorary, there could potentially be funding to generate grants and those types of things for that type of element on the plaza, where there may not be as many funds available to restore and place the Yancey up there, and that's not here or there. It's his council here that's going to direct this and where we go with it. So.
Or do we want to still keep a service area?
Well, there was a lot of discussion about that during these meetings, and again, and Warren touched on it, each piece really deserves its own space, and there was a lot of talk about pedestrian flow and the movement of people and those types of things. And if you look at the original master plan versus this one, the original master plan was very disjointed. You had one space here, and then you had another space in the middle, and then you had another space on the corner, and they were barely connected. What we're trying to do now is just get a plaza that's interconnected, and it really takes you from Highway 33 in Fresno all the way into the downtown. And that's what this committee thought they were trying to do with this, with that. So.
On that topic, when we started doing design development last year, what Michael described was exactly our observations. Because of those site constraints where this jutted way in here and it was constricted, there was a series of at least 2 major spaces and almost 3 or 4 subspaces. And there was a lot of stuff in there. There's the Christmas tree, the fountain, the mailbox, don't laugh, but it's there. The John Sharp Monument, the Yancey building, and it felt like these things were starting to compete for attention. So we were trying to kind of meld things together a little bit more. And that's how this evolved. And when we expanded the area, we got that opportunity, particularly the McBride building right here, that changed things dramatically. And that's what spurred us on to literally, I don't know, we probably had a dozen different design ideas mulling around with the design committee. Go ahead.
I'm just going to say, what could happen is flipping those two. You're still, the Sharp, I think, monument's going to stay in the park, so we don't even need to talk about that. And then the expansion, it doesn't eliminate the expansion, that's still possible. So all I'm saying is there's still room, it seems to me like, for a surface area and the Yancey home by just flipping those two. By flipping you might lose the mailbox, but maybe they would give up the mailbox. Yeah, for that. It could be at another spot.
Our job is to develop a design that the community wants to build. I mean, it's your community, and we take our direction from Michael through the council, and, you know, challenges like this are what we face every day, and, you know, if you guys all decide to explore those ideas, we can do that. I did want to make a comment, though, on the idea of using the Yancey building as a restroom. I don't know if that would work because of as a public building restroom. You would almost take up the whole building by the time you got clearances and turn space. Yeah, yeah.
You're adding restrooms. There's already restrooms in the McBride building with other plumbing, and it looks like you can use part of the McBride building and
Eliminate these.
McBride building for restrooms and eliminate the area, put something else there when you have the restroom.
Right. I think one of the reasons we showed the restrooms here independent of this is there was thinking that maybe this remains as a commercial operation. I mean, I don't know if there's an exact use for this, but if it were an independent commercial operation, they'd need their own restroom and not be a so this would be designed as a public restroom. And probably the restrooms in here, to make them meet code for public use, would be renovated. Yeah, you'd have to do a lot of renovation, but it could work that way if the decision.
Water in every room in that building.
Yeah.
Except the
Yeah.
reception area.
There's one back here. The service service recognition feature. Yes, the Yancey building.
The monument?
Oh,
The McBride building?
McBride building.
Oh.
Yeah.
So, Mayor, really, so what we'd like the council to do is, if you would like us to, re-enlist RRM and go back and look at this, I strongly encourage the members that are here tonight to show up to the Plaza Committee. Give us your name. We need people on the Plaza Committee that want, if you really strongly believe in this, Kathy Ponce de Leon. If this is something you really strongly believe in, we want you on our committee, because there are design challenges, and we want your creativity in as part of that. And we can, if the council really believes that the Yancey needs to be out there, let's get these people to these meetings and help us make these tough decisions. We probably had on that Plaza Committee, we would send out a dozen or dozen and a half, I would imagine, invitations to the committee members, and we'd get 4 or 5, 6 people show up. And it fell on these 4 or 5 or 6 people to show up to really make some of these decisions. Staff just sat there and we didn't really give our input. We let it really come from the committee. If this is true, and there are members of the community out there that feel really adamant about this, let's go back. Give us your names. Get back into that Plaza Committee and let's get it done. We want to move this project forward. We have funding available in 0809 this fiscal coming year that we need to start planning for. And so we need people to be active in that. And we're willing to go back to the table and look at it if that's the council wants, but we need these people to be a part of it. We can't go back and revisit it with the same people that are there, because we've already done that. We need people that want to be creative and that want to solve this problem and figure out how to get the Yancey in there. Those are the people, if that's the council's desire, those are the people we want on the committee, and let's get it done so we can have a plaza instead of just talking about this plaza.
The advantage of being phase 3 also gives you a little bit more time. It gives the community more time maybe to do fundraising efforts, get volunteers that like they did with the schoolhouse.
Right.
You know, they did a lot of that on their own.
But even before we can even do phase one, we need to solve this problem right now, because this only takes us to about 30% of the project. 40% of the project. We need to still get down into the details on what the concrete color is, what the slopes are, what kind of materials we're going to use. And so if we can't get past this hurdle, we can't get to the next hurdle and start bidding this project and getting it going. So
We do.
those are my 2 cents.
Even we do maybe have more time for things like fundraising, but from a design point of view, we really need to solve this area at this level, because it could have some effect on what happens, the interface between it and the parking and this central space. Those we need to have at this level of design in order to move forward with confidence in final construction drawings for, the first couple of phases of work.
Sounds to me like the consensus of the council is we definitely want the Yancey building in the plaza. Am I assuming right?
Yes.
Then I would say let's send it back to the committee with hopefully some new blood on it, and get some people that are still on there, if they want to be on there, to show up, and get us the names of the people that voted to kick it out. Oh, no. Give me that later, okay?
I would never do that to Bob Navoa.
Okay. Thank you so much.
No, but seriously, Mayor,
I was serious.
We need people. We need people to contact Mike Meyer at the City Hall. Give them their phone number. Give them email addresses. We need to know what dates you're available and times, because, again, we want to keep this project moving. Also, we'll have to come back to you now with a new contract amendment, so we can do some of this additional study work that's going to do. Cause
I would just like to ask that we get a 2 weeks notice.
we can do 2 weeks notice.
3 days is a problem.
Mike, I know you weren't considering this, but what's your drop dead date, do you think?
We don't have a drop dead date on it.
Okay, but this will,
Well,
but
there's
that
08,
money has to be used.
There's 08, 09 funding, so we
Yeah.
need to get to a certain point. We need
Well,
to
that's
get
what I
it.
mean.
Yeah, we need to get at least enough of this level done so that the engineers can start looking at the stuff underground, because
Okay.
that's where a lot of the first phase of the funding is going to go. So,
Well, we need to, for the T money, we need to have plans ready for bid next spring, early spring.
yeah.
So we're, we've got a little bit of
little
time, but we
time,
need
but
to,
not
we need to
much.
start like right now.
Yeah,
We
Michael,
need to-
I just think, we set a date, and those people who are interested, Mrs. Mulkey and Mrs. Stevens and
Mrs. Ponce de Leon.
Mrs. Ponce de Leon and Mrs. Brunette, and people who really wholeheartedly feel this way, attend this meeting, and let's get it done, and let's move forward, because every time we keep these guys doing more drawings, it costs more money. So I think the consensus of the council is we'd like to see that included. So let's just get done with it, because eventually we're going to get to the point where we have that drop dead date where we need to get moving, and so let's do it right and get it over with.
We'll work with Warren and Sam, and we'll get a date set, this week
Great.
for 2 weeks from now. We generally send them out, try to do about 2 weeks notice, because these gentlemen have busy schedules anyway. So, so we'll get the notices out and get that going. So
Great.
Look forward to probably that first week of July. Second week of July. But we need any more. You start pushing it out. 4 weeks turns into 5, turns into 6. We really got to push forward on this thing. So maybe that week of the 23rd through the 27th. Yeah, maybe that week of the 23rd to the 27th. Again, these gentlemen right here, they have to go back and check their calendars, but we'll try to get that going and hopefully get that set up.
Great.
Okay, sounds good.
I've got 2 more points. I want to thank the public for coming out. It makes our job up here a lot easier when you have an opinion and you come down here and express it. And the other thing is that I'd like to thank Mary and Kathy and Glennis for volunteering to be on that committee.
Don't forget Francis. Yeah.
Suggestions are not enough without action to follow them up and complete them.
All right, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Good job.
Thank you, everyone.
It's going to be nice. It's going to be beautiful. Thank you.
Okay, item C,
Okay.
report of the landscaping and lighting districts.
Mary, you want to take 5?
Take 5? Yeah, we can.
No, keep 5 minutes.
You want to tell them they're welcome to stay for the rest of the council?
Oh, they know
if
that.
they'd like to.
Are we taking 5? Okay, we're taking.
You're going to take 5?
Oh, we're rolling.
What are you gonna do?
Okay, report on landscape and lighting districts.
That's good, Aaron.
I'm not gonna read them all the three.
What are you doing? I think you're gonna take them.
No, you said no.
Yes, Mr. Mayor, council members. As stated in the staff report, the two resolutions you have before you initiate proceedings for fiscal year 0809 as required by the Landscape and Lighting Act of 1972. And it's also to establish the intention for levy and collection of assessments for the landscape and lighting districts of zones 1 through 15 for the years 0809. A public hearing will be scheduled for June 24th, 2008 to allow public comments on the assessments and also on the engineer's report that was prepared by NBS. So staff recommendation is that you adopt these two resolutions.
Questions? Not some action?
I'll make a motion, we adopt both resolutions. Do I need to read them, John, or?
No.
No, okay.
Unless you'd like to. Do we have a second?
Second, Deb.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Thank you very much. And item D, approve fiscal year budget 0809 as presented in the preliminary budget document.
Good evening, Mayor and council members. The three resolutions I have tonight is to approve the annual budget for 2008-2009 fiscal year, establish the appropriations limit for the fiscal year, and adopt the 2008-2009 redevelopment budget. As presented tonight in the special meeting, we are appropriating $4,127,261 for the general fund as shown on page 23 of the preliminary budget. We are appropriating $3,736,672 for the special revenue funds as shown on page 59 of the preliminary budget. $2,229,832 for enterprise funds as shown on page 99 of the preliminary budget, and $738,123 for the capital project funds on page 109 of the budget. Also for the appropriations, each year we do the calculations based on the increase in population. This year the appropriations limit is $9,571,832. The city's appropriation subject limit is $4,059,101. So we're under the legal limit by over $5.5 million. So we'll be okay there. So, does anybody have any questions about the budget that was presented earlier or about the appropriations limit? Sorry, it's been a long night.
I don't know.
One comment, you did an excellent job in a form that was easy to read.
Thank you.
And follow.
Very nice, very
Thank you.
nice.
There's no further questions? Some action then?
I move for approval of all three resolutions.
I second it.
All in favor?
Aye.
Motion passes. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Nice job, son.
Thank you.
Nice job.
And item, let's see, item D4. It's a trick. Report from Supervisor DeMartini.
Oh.
Didn't know what I was talking about.
No,
huh?
I did.
Yeah.
D4.
Well, we used D up here, you know, so I don't want to go back to F.
Yeah, good evening, Mayor Panazia, council members. I have a couple of things tonight. I can give you a report on the Orostemba Creek meetings that we've had. We had one on May 28th, which was a very productive meeting, where Congressman Cardoza was there and Corps of Engineers. And so we had some site visits and a very good discussion. And having Congressman Cardoza helping on this project means a lot, because without his help, I think we would have been done already on this project. So that meeting went well. But then we had another meeting on June 6th that I would say did not go very well. And that's because the Nature Conservatory was there and the Fish and Game. And they just threw out all these obstacles of why a detention dam couldn't be built. It was a red-legged frog, problems with that. It was the
They always bring
kickbox,
that up.
which doesn't even exist in the area, I don't believe. And a new one that I had not heard before is that a detention dam would stop the pebbles from coming down, and it would create some sediment, and that would change the plant life and somehow hurt the frogs and the.
That's what you call grasping at straws, huh, Jim?
That's exactly what it was. It was just they were looking for some sort of excuse
anything they could bring
to
in.
not be able to put in the detention dam. We did have a representative from Congressman Cardoza. We were pretty much appalled at what we heard, and they said, "Well," they said, "this detention dam would probably not even be in use, maybe once every 10 or 15 years, generally." And it's, even that would cause a devastating effect upon the upon the plant life and the. There was something about the pebbles or the gravel that washes down off the hills couldn't have any sand in it, and because it was a gravel bed, and that's the only thing that the sycamores like to grow in. So it was not a very productive meeting, and it shows that we really have some challenges ahead to get this done. There is another sycamore grove somewhere around, I believe it's around Livermore, so we're going to get a date and go out there and look at how that grove is managed. I'm not sure if it's Livermore, but it's somewhere around there to see what can be done. Another thing that's probably worth mentioning is that there are no new sycamore trees in this area at all. These trees are estimated to be between 400 and 500 years old. It's too bad they haven't died already. Because there's no new sycamore trees coming. So
did you tell the fishing game guy that?
No, I did not tell them. I was just sat there and just took it, And I mean, we just.
What are you gonna say?
But it was very disappointing to hear that kind of attitude. That, the kit fox and these old snags of the trees out there are more important than the people in Newman. But it was not a good meeting. So this is a long ways from getting resolved. Very long ways. One of the things I did learn between the two meetings was that if there's a detention dam, it would be best built with a flow control valve. And I didn't realize this before, but as water backs up in the detention dam, the higher it gets, the more pressure it would create. And so there would need to be a control valve, a gate, rather, it's like a stop gate like we use in irrigation, to control the flow down to the creek. So it lower flows in when it backs up against the dam. You could open the gate up, and as the water level rose, it would create more pressure and more flow, so the gate would have to be lowered. So that is, part of the design, assuming this thing ever gets built. There was somebody who suggested that the aqueduct serve as the backdrop for the dam, but that is probably, I think the person's words were not in this lifetime. So as far as using the canal as the dam itself, it probably is not going to happen. So we had two meetings. The first one went real well. You're really optimistic. We're going to make some progress. Something's going to get done. And then the second meeting, it all fell apart.
Don't pay attention to that second meeting.
It's just incredible. That this has been going on for as long as it has, and just for the simple reason that we're trying to protect our city and other areas from future flooding, and the bureaucratic crap that goes on it's unbelievable.
So there's not much flexibility with the Fish and Game and the Nature Conservatory. The new one, though, was the pebbles. I thought that was very innovative because I had never thought of that. Apparently they didn't see the last flood. I don't know what happened to the sand and the pebbles when the water stretched about
it was all in our buildings.
5 or 6 miles wide. But just the saying that even if it was every 10 years for a few days, that it was going to create some type of catastrophe for the frogs and the sycamore trees. So at some point, reasonably soon, not right away, but reasonably soon, there will be a field trip to another sycamore grove to see how that's managed. No date yet. Okay, the only other thing I have is the West Side Healthcare Task Force will be meeting on June 19th in Gustine. We have made a fair amount of progress on this. We do have a white paper. There's I just read it today for the first time. It's where we've been and where we might be able to go, what our objectives are. And we do have a speaker coming in from the Bay Area on possible ways to finance a facility like this. So I don't know what they're going to come up with, but they were very interested in coming. So we meet about every 6 weeks or so. This is a very complex project. We have done a thorough analysis of what's called OSHPD data, and we have found some more significant flaws in our original interpretation of the data. So there is significantly more people from the West Side that we have been able to track to hospitals in Turlock and Modesto, and even in Los Banos. And because the last time we had met, the numbers of people going to the emergency room were extremely small. They were small to the point where, just, boy, if that's all that there is, then we have no problem. But the numbers that we have now are probably 10 times what that was, which is more in line to what everybody would think it would be. So we have some good data our county council has put together. It's all laid out in a pretty clean format, and we have the final, this better be the final draft of the flyer that we're going to send out, showing where the healthcare facilities are on the West Side. There's Sutter Gould, Del Puerto Healthcare, private doctors, and Golden Valley. All the locations, the doctors' names, the specialties, and it's the map of the district, and it's a very nice flyer. We have worked on this and changed it and changed it and changed it. So hopefully this will be the last time. I think we have a nice product. We have it's about $2,000 to print these and get these out, and that will come out of our CEO's economic development budget. So we will present the final draft, have a speaker from the Bay Area on financing, and present some very good data from the OSHPD of where people go from this area when they do have an emergency, what that emergency is, and then what happens to them afterwards. So there's been a lot of hours spent by county staff since the last meeting to this next one. So it should be a very productive meeting. Though we still have a ways to go, though. We're making progress. Okay.
Thank you, Jim. Thank you, Jim.
Thank you, Jim. I think the key about that Orstemba deal that Jim said is Congressman Cardoza is 110% committed to this project for years. And we invited the new Army Corps colonel. He came down, Colonel Chapman, and he is the first colonel that's ever come down and actually looked at the project. And I think he's going to be the key to iron these things out with the Fish and Game and the Conservancy. The last colonel I met, Sacramento, went in there, met him. Thanks for coming. Here's a coffee mug. That's all. Serious, that's all he said. This gentleman, Colonel Chapman, actually came down and very personable person. I think we're going to have good relations with him. So
Problem is,
that's gonna
Cardoza
be-
might be out of office by the time this all comes around.
He said he's going to get it done before he leaves.
Good.
That's his commitment. So, is there any other staff reports this evening?
Mayor, I'm just going to go ahead and pass this letter out, and hopefully the council can approve it. If they do, go ahead and sign it.